Hi everyone, myself Nikilar from DSCI, and a grand welcome to all to the AISS 2021 from my side on behalf of DSCI, and I am welcome you to the topic that we are discussing today is SASE roadmap for and today we have different speakers from different industry to talk about this topic. So I'm gladly introducing Mr. Sunil P, the Director of Security Operation and Engineer of Epsilon, as our moderator. Yeah.
Hi everyone.
Yeah. So the other speakers are Mr. Ganeshan Ramani, Vice President Digital GRC at Mashreq Bank, and Ganeshan Ramani on stage. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi all.
Yeah, and Mr. Vinay Bhatt, the Director Network and Security Business, VMware India.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone.
And Mr. Surajit Dasgupta, Country Manager India and SAC Lookout.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi. So, Mr. Sunil P, I am giving you the front stage. Sunil team, I am requesting you to take me to the backstage.
Sure. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. As you already know, my name is Sunil, and I lead the IT security and operations and engineering at Publicis Group A. And you know this pandemic has created a very dynamic and destructive way of working unimaginable during our pre-pandemic times. You know, just like how e-commerce provides services to any customers across the globe, this pandemic has also opened avenues for people to work from anywhere for companies located anywhere in the world, effectively and efficiently. And this also provides companies access to a very skilled workforce, which was little difficult in the pre-pandemic times. Like two sides of the same coin, this has also created a big opportunities for malicious actors also. And in order to handle these challenges, several concepts and technologies evolved during this pandemic years. And one of that concept is SASE, which was actually coined as SASE by Gartner in the early 2020, and which saw an increased adoption in the last 1 year. And this discussion is basically to understand what was the reasons behind this faster adoptions. And my fellow panelists who already been introduced will help me understand this interesting fact, right? So my first question to Mr. Surajit will be like, from a vendor perspective, what are the key elements of SASE and what drives the customers to adopt SASE?
Thanks, Sunil. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, I would say when I look at the panel topic today, I would like to say that it is, SASE, a roadmap for cloud security convergence, right? Because if you look at what SASE is a converged security and WAN connectivity solution, right? Software defined, cloud delivered. Now, if you look at the different components that are there in SASE, and I would say that, like you mentioned for Gartner, they put it actually very, very nicely, right? So if from a visual thing, if you look at it, right, how Gartner defines it, right, they talk about it as entities which can involve your users, your devices from the different locations that they're trying to access those devices. So entities anywhere, as they coin the term, as well as resources everywhere, right? Now, when we say resources, this can be your company data center, organization's data center, it can be public cloud, right? Now, between these entities everywhere and the resources everywhere, right, there has to be a consistent user experience, right, along with a consistent network and security policy, right? Now, these are the things, both of these things that like Gartner very nicely says for SASE, along with the zero trust access, right? Now, when we talk about now SASE cloud infrastructure, right, now falls very much between what I mentioned, right? Now, in this, you have, on one side, you have what you call as the WAN edge or the infrastructure services. And on the other side, you have what you call as the security services, the SSE that we popularly talk about, right? Now, talking about the security paradigm from within what we call as SSE, what are the different components that we see in that SSE part, right? We've all heard about CASB, right? SecTNA, right? Secure web gateway, right? Firewall as a service. And of course, with the CASB and the ZTNA, if you have the DLP and the UBA all inbuilt in, right? Now, when you talk about the second part, in terms of adoption of SASE, right? Like you very correctly mentioned when you're introducing, right? The initial adoption had started, quite some time back. It was not something that got very new, right? But it got accelerated when organizations across the globe had to figure out a remote working model last year, right? When countries went for lockdown to prevent the spread of the pandemic, right? Employees were in their native or at home and yet need to be productive. So they needed to secure access medium to corporate applications, whether it was residing in the office data center or in the public cloud.
Sure. Thanks for summing up very well, Mr. Surajit. The next, I would like to ask Mr. Vinay, who would represent an OEM as well as an end user, right? So, from a customer perspective, what solutions are available to cover the use cases of SASE? And more importantly, what factors does it actually influence you to a particular solution or a vendor?
I think a very good question, Sunil, because when Gartner termed this coined SASE, there was everybody's interpretation to that solution SASE. And there are many vendors today, right, who are providing SASE solutions in the market. So to the question, are there vendors who can provide SASE solutions to the customers? The answer is definitely yes, and there are many. But from a customer perspective, there are certain things that a customer needs to evaluate before they select a particular SASE vendor. So, and at a very high level, let me put it this way. The first and foremost, while SASE is a security solution, and we are all taught in our olden days that security is inversely proportional to flexibility, right? So more secure it is, more inflexible you are. So the first parameter that I would, expect customer to evaluate SASE on is user experience. How is the user experience going to be? Is it going to be very difficult? Is it going to be very easy? For example, today, when I'm attending this session and I was asking Surajit, whether they are attending this from his office or his home, and he said home. And for me, this is a makeshift office. I've actually taken a conference room here. I came out and I thought I'll take up this office, and I'm getting access to all my applications very, very seamlessly. So how easy it is for a user to access his applications and data, and user experience for me is the foremost. The second bit that I would probably mention here is integration. Now, SASE is something that we are looking now, right? And primarily because of the pandemic situation, primarily because of distributed applications or cloud adoptions and distributed workforce, it entailed, people to evaluate solutions like SASE. But integration with the legacy data center customer still has, because he's not going to throw away his data center because he's looking at SASE. He's not going to throw away his legacy infrastructure, legacy applications, or anything that is there in his data center because he's implementing SASE. So how well a SASE can integrate with all of these legacy applications, data, and infrastructure for him, and make it seamless for him to implement is the second point. And third, again, last but not the least, but third is visibility, right? Now, when a customer is actually adopting cloud, the biggest challenge is visibility. Where is this applications getting executed out of? Where are they hosted out of? What kind of traffic flows into them? Now, we are also talking about Log4j, right? I think last 1 week, everybody is losing their sleepless nights over Log4j. Where all is this kind of vulnerability affecting me? So how do I get my customers that required visibility for all these applications and even the user data, right? When laptops, desktops are accessing their applications, who are these users? Are they authenticated? What kind of devices are they accessing from? All that visibility is very, very critical. And you can secure only what you know, right? Only what you can view. So once you have that visibility, then you can go and put those security measures. So according to me, Sunil, these three are the key parameters that any customer should evaluate before evaluating a SASE solution. And a very quick or a very short answer to your question: are there solutions in the market? There definitely are, and but a customer needs to evaluate them across these three parameters before going ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Vinay. Thanks for summing up very nicely. And I think this not only applies for SASE, but for any other solutions also, right? So thanks for that tips. So I would like to ask Mr. Ganeshan. The next is about, we talk about SASE, we talk about zero trust, we talk about so many elements as part of SASE. So from a privacy landscape, how does it fit in? Is it going to cause issues with the privacy aspect or not?
Yeah, Thanks, Sunil. I think it's a very kind of a important topic on the SASE convergence today, right? So when Gartner bought this SASE, it was a kind of an interesting combination where you have got this cloud security, software-defined networks, and finally you have this zero trust, and amalgamating all of them and bringing into a single box, right, for a better management. This is a kind of a great thing to move on. As Surjit and Vinay said that, yeah, a lot of product and OEM vendors play a key role in designing the solution, right? When it comes to privacy, right, it's a kind of a very interesting paradigm which I want to bring few pointers, right? The privacy is kind of a thing which you have to have an impact assessment done on your existing architecture, existing application architecture, system architecture, and network architecture. So, what is your business? What data you collect, and what is your privacy impact? What are the legal and regulatory guidelines you have to adhere to, right? So, those are the very important things. Even before SASE, it existed, and there are a number of steps people do in privacy, doing a privacy impact assessment, going through the data dictionary, how to do masking, or how to ensure that the data retention controls are in place. So all these things existed in blocks. Now, when these things started to converge into a SASE kind of a model, how good we are, we have to have pointers where we have to see how we can integrate those privacy activities and controls, right? For example, if I have a single SASE model, I think customers can access data, or customers or employees or partners from any device at any place. So what kind of application they are accessing, what kind of data they are accessing, what kind of modification is there, what are the security controls and access management controls, and what is the privacy impact to the data, whether they can access it from any place, or whether they should be geographically kind of segregated. So you have a lot of regulations like GDPR, even the Indian IT Privacy Act, which is going to come up. So privacy is a kind of a big challenge at the current stage. So what I think organizations should look up is look into their existing model, the AISS model, what it is in terms of data privacy and other controls they are following it up, and what is a to be model when you have the SASE convergence, and when you have the convergence, how these controls are like being kind of transformed. Either you cut controls or you add controls depending upon the way. And again, different. If you see organization, you have multiple security teams, application teams, and other teams doing different kind of activities, right? And again, when you converge this, what is going to be your org structure and who is going to operate what controls, and you have a lot of SASE vendors, suppliers, and other people also trying to come and help you out, right? So it's going to be a little bit a complex ecosystem, but again, a simple way to start with is what is your assets and where you want to go to be, right? So that would be a kind of a appropriate step for any organization to begin with, or to think about the privacy impact to the SASE convergence.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Ganeshan. So I think rightly summed up with so much of data coming into picture. How do we exactly manage it? Risk-based approach is what you're recommending. Good for that. Mr. Vinay, now SASE is mainly seen as an endpoint solution. Like OEMs like you, who like VMware, how who mainly provide work in core infra and other things, right? What kind of solutions do you offer in this SASE, or how exactly these OEMs help in this SASE ecosystem?
Very good question, Sunil. First of all, I don't think it's just an endpoint based solution. First of all, but even if I have to, answer it that way, even if I have to look at SASE from an endpoint perspective, because of the distributed workforce, SASE for endpoint has become very relevant, because now the applications and the data is getting access from anywhere on any network, and those networks are not secure, right? And that's why SASE has come into picture. But let me tell you, OEMs like VMware, in fact, we have an edge from that perspective, because we were known rather as an infrastructure company, but you will be surprised to know that we also have a formidable security option, security solutions. So what we've been doing is, in VMware, we've been always saying that security need not be bolted in; it has to be built in. What it means is security cannot be an afterthought, right? When we are designing our homes, when we are designing, a laptop, or we are designing anything, you cannot think about security later. You have to think about security integrated. Let me tell you what I mean. Now, VMware being an infrastructure software, we had solutions around VDI, desktop virtualization, and enterprise mobility management. Now with SASE, what we have done is we have used the same agent because we didn't want to, have an agent storm. One of the biggest problem with endpoints is agents. I'm sure, at this point of time, you are running some 18 to 19 agents on your laptops or your desktops. And the problem is patching, right? Log4j has told everybody that patching is the solution, but if you don't patch your softwares, that is the problem. So what VMware has done is we have consolidated the agents on this endpoints. And then we look at the desktop and endpoint device posture before allowing the traffic to go onto SASE. People talk about zero trust network, right? So when VMware says zero trust network is at every level, and SASE is one building pillar for that, and it has to be integrated into the infrastructure solution, and that is an edge for OEMs like us. It is, and then the second part of my solution. I don't believe SASE is just an endpoint solution. It is also a solution for your server workload. Why? Because of the adoption of public cloud, because you're accessing all your applications or a large part of your applications on public cloud. It doesn't make sense to have those security services inbuilt into your data center and then accessing those clouds. It makes a lot of sense to access those clouds security services in the cloud, and then from there moving on to those packets to your applications. Why? Because today, again, this example of log4j, now everybody's scrambling to patch their applications, hot patches, and what are the workarounds and so on and so forth. Imagine if all of this was going onto cloud can be patched in no time, right? So all your applications can suddenly get protected because all of them has to pass through this gateway in the cloud where your SASE services are available, and you would tick mark what all SASE services could be applied to them, and you could get security at a click of a button, security as a service. So I believe, infrastructure players like us will actually have an edge here because we give all this security or SASE services agentless. It is all inbuilt into the infrastructure solutions that we provide.
Thanks for that, Mr. Vinay. Thanks for that enlightening thought about it's not just endpoint, but it can be applied anywhere, and especially with the cloud workloads. Thank you for that. Mr. Surajit, now SASE has evolved within that last 1 year, as we've all been talking about from the start of the session, right? And we see a lot of integrations also with that. So according to you, what are the key things organizations should look at it, right? Now, Vinay gave his perspective from a customer point of view, but from a vendor perspective, what should an organization look at while embarking on the SASE journey, looking at the present threat landscape?
Thanks. I think that's a fantastic question. Yes, definitely. I think we all agree that it has evolved, and definitely we are seeing a lot of integrations. I think one area which organizations should revisit is the security aspect of mobile devices. Right now, why I am saying this, right? With work from anywhere, employees do not access the company data from not only their secured office laptops, but also from their mobile devices and in some cases unmanaged devices as well. Typically, we've seen in India that organizations have really fortified their, you would say, the desktops, the servers, and the laptops, but have been a little lenient towards the mobile devices. And in some organizations, have invested in MDM kind of solutions for authentication or administration, but have not invested in mobile enterprise security to prevent, say, any kind of phishing attacks, man in the middle kind of attacks, or malware, ransomware kind of attacks. Today, almost 85% of the mobile phishing attacks do not originate from emails, which typically organizations try and protect. In a mobile, a phishing attack can come from social messaging platforms through compromised apps, right? Now, integrating their mobile endpoint security in their SASE journey is very important. I'll give you an example how at Lookout we have integrated SAME to provide organizations a secure data path from endpoint to cloud. Now, we expanded Lookout continuous conditioned access, or we call it a CCA, by integrating our security and access platforms. Now, how does it help organization? It helps organization to make a detailed and ongoing risk assessments of mobile endpoints and users, right? And apply that information in a very granular access control, as opposed to a simple yes or no access decision that ensures business continuity securely, right? Now, let's look at how this works. Say, for example, as an employee uses a mobile device that has a Lookout installed to access corporate resources, right? Lookout continuously monitors the device based on the threat telemetry of the Lookout security graph, now, which is populated by more than 200 million devices across the globe from 150 countries. Right now, since Lookout mobile endpoint security is fully integrated with Lookout CASB and the Lookout ZTNA, we Lookout can make access decision based not only on the device risk posture but also user risk level and the sensitivity of the data that is being accessed from those devices. So yes, looking at the threat landscape, I would urge organizations to really look at integrating their endpoints with SASE, and by endpoints, not only their laptops, desktops, but mobile endpoints as well, whether it's their mobile phones or tablets, as they also carry not only critical organization data, but also employee personal data.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Surajit. I think it makes sense for organizations to look at it, especially with BOD and remote working. It would make more, a better investment to look at the endpoints also. Thanks for that, Mr. Surajit. Again, this is question common to you both, Mr. Vinay, as well as Surajit, one from a customer standpoint and other one from a vendor standpoint, right? Now, SASE, when we say it's an integration of multiple components or multiple elements, right? Now, how will you actually drive this with the management for this adoption? It's not easy. And how are you going to look at the financials for that? ROA being an important part, how do you make sure that ROA is realized, right? So I would start with Mr. Vinay from a customer perspective, and then Surajit, you can take it from a vendor perspective on how you can help customers management to take a decision.
Sure, Sunil. So you want me to go first?
Yeah, Mr. Vinay, that will be better from a customer
okay.
perspective. So
sure, okay.
Okay. So, Sunil, the way I would put is this. In current situation, right, in current pandemic situation, like we said, there was 10 years of digital or digitization that happened in a matter of 10 months, right? So for that kind of digital transformation to happen, cloud adoption was required, was needed. Now, for cloud adoption to happen and all my applications and data to be accessed on cloud, I had to be, convinced on the security of my applications and data in the cloud. One, second, because of the distributed workforce, because of the lockdown, because of people accessing all my applications and data from their home, there were two variables here, right? One is the network. They were coming in from the local broadbands. They were coming in from 4G. They were coming in from all possible types of networks. And the devices were either BYOD or company provided, but they were laptops, iPad, desktops, whatever they were, right? So from that perspective, I think security was the most key thing for me, for me to look at. And I think, SASE fits in really well there. So if I have to look at SASE evaluate SASE from two perspectives, tangible and intangible, I think from an intangible perspective, right, it was a business need. There is no brainer that SASE was the need of an hour, because I had to deploy the services in cloud rather than install them or deploy them in any of my in-house data center or a centralized public cloud. But instead of that, I had to deploy it as a service, so that all of these applications and data, they could get a gateway where they could access, get the checklist done from a security perspective, and then move on to wherever they reside. They could be public cloud or private cloud or any of the multi-cloud or hybrid cloud. So from business perspective, it is a business need. Now from an ROI perspective, from a tangible perspective, when any customer does this, right, he does get rid of lot of his existing security solutions, right? So those security solutions and the operations that's come along with it actually goes away, right? So when you're looking from an ROI perspective, there is this investment that I have to do from a SASE solutions on cloud perspective. But what I'm actually making redundant is my existing security solutions that are in-house. Security solutions like firewalling, security solutions like uh, uh, your CASB, security solutions like DLP, security solutions like VPN. All of this become redundant for me, and then I can take them off, which can then help me justify the business case for SASE. But again, Sunil, coming back, the need for SASE, it cannot be justified by ROI alone. It is actually the business need, because the scalability, right? Because of digitalization and digital transformation, the amount of traffic alone that started getting generated on internet for digital payments, for digital shopping, for e-commerce and retailers, all of that kind of scale, there wouldn't have been possible for me to set it up all in house and then to be able to cater to that kind of workload. So I had to look at a cloud model which gives me elasticity and scale for that kind of workload. So SASE was more of a business need than an ROI, but it still can be definitely justified by an ROI as well.
Sure. Thanks, Vinay. Maybe Surajit, you can give from a vendor perspective, how do you drive the discussion so that a customer can adopt this SASE journey?
Absolutely. So when I try to articulate it, so from my perspective, see, here's the reality, right? Hybrid and remote work are here to stay, right? And they are not going away anywhere, right? Rather than data centers being the focal point for access needs, most user endpoints, apps, data now live outside of office perimeters, right? This means the internet has actually replaced the internal network, and organizations no longer have visibility into how their data is handled, nor do they have any controls needed to secure them, right? This also means that access to a corporate data can now come from anywhere, on any device and any network, right? In order to tackle this new normal, as productivity becomes more agile, so should security be, right? And the SASE journey has to be taken. The idea is to leverage integrated solutions that are cloud delivered, so that organization can have zero trust secure access capabilities regardless of where work is happening, right? SASE provides a scalable and easy to deploy framework that takes security to where it needs to be. This enables organizations to mitigate against advanced threats and significantly reduce the cost of security operations. One of the pillars of SASE is to cut down on complexity and reduce cost by deploying the converged solutions that have capabilities previously delivered by multiple products, such as the DLP, as was mentioned by Vinay, right? The SASE implementation process is a journey that has the end goal of enabling organizations to stay agile and secure data no matter where it goes. But a complete transition is no simple feat. A full implementation would require organization wide coordination and the phasing out of existing investments. Right? On premise security tools that were deployed in isolation are no longer enough even for on premise workloads. To tackle the ever evolving challenges of a cloud first world, organizations need to invest in an integrated platform that can secure their data from endpoint to cloud. The threat landscape will continue to evolve in 2022. And I would encourage organizations to not bring a sword to this gunfight. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Surajit and Mr. Vinay. I think that both of you summed up that the point of the discussion with the management should be the current threat landscape and how this is going to actually enhance the security posture of the company rather than just a financial investment. Thanks for that. Mr. Ganesh, with respect to the technology risks and industry standard frameworks, right? What are the things that are driving SASE convergence? And does SASE actually complicates or eases the compliance requirements?
Yeah, good question. So when we talk about industry standards and frameworks, right? So you have well-established industry standards and framework for cybersecurity or doing IT governance work, right? So for SASE, I don't think so. We have to reinvent the whole wheel of having a new industry standard. So the first thing is that what is the business? What is the business the organization does? And what are their current legal and regulatory compliance requirements? So that is obviously on the board. The second thing, where are they with respect to their security journey, right? So you can see that different organizations are in different maturity levels or in terms of cloud security or cloud adoption. Some organizations are on the way, some are like 80% done, some are 40% done. And then with respect to the SD-WAN or adopting a zero trust principle, right? So there are different journeys altogether. And now when we talk about SASE convergence, then you have to take all these different programs or journeys and then bring into a master class, right? And then you need to have you define your network, security, and application architecture very clearly. What you want to be like, as I told you about the privacy landscapes, the same thing applies here. What is your current assets and what do you want to be? And again, the industry standard and controls remains the same. When SASE convergence happen, what happens is you kind of add few security components or solutions, or you eliminate few certain security components or solutions, right? That's what you kind of do, and try to bring a converged view so that you reduce the complexity and have a seamless remote access. That's a major objective of SASE convergence, right? And then when we come into the framework or the technology risk we have, the risk is really high because these products or solutions or these kind of transformation touches your crown jewel of your organization, which is the data, right? Data, who's going to access the data, what is the data, and how it is going to be monitored, right? And again, with respect to your existing control framework, you might have controls like IT general controls like access management, patch management, change management, and all those things, right? And of course, when SASE convergence took place, some of these pillars and boxes, organization, different teams will get involved, suppliers will get involved, vendors will get involved. How are you going to transform that? So that is one of the biggest technology risk and challenge over there. The second thing is this with respect to the security controls. This is a very important dimension, right? So we already, as I think Vinay was pointing out, we already do like a lot of antivirus, patch management, log4j, a lot of things are going on here, right? How when SASE convergence come up, so how are we going to kind of re-engineer those business processes, right? How are we going to do vulnerability management, vulnerability scans, and endpoint security? So Surjit brought a very valid point about endpoint security because people need to have seamless access, and the endpoint device or anything. It might be an organization provided device or a BYOD or even a jailbroken device, right? You never know what kind of device people are connecting, right? So so there are security risk over there, and of course the network and the security architecture, right? With zero trust, I think what we trust, what we don't want to trust itself is very important, and that configuration and monitoring is even more important. And of course, the last one is the cloud adoption, right? Where the SaaS convergence plays a key pillar, right? What data goes to cloud, and what kind of configurations we do on the cloud. So a lot of cloud security issues. We have standard cloud vendors across the world, but again, if you see a lot of cloud security incidents, it is due to the poorly or misconfigured, either from the organization side or from the vendor side or from other supplier side also. So people have to have a close watch on this. So when we talk about industry standards, frameworks for this SaaS convergence, let's keep it simple. So see what is your target architecture. See what is the transformation of IT general controls from the existing architecture to the new architecture, and in terms of roles and responsibilities between multiple teams. And then come to your security controls. And in security controls, how this new solution would kind of whether you need to design new controls and operate new controls. You have to have a larger decision based on that. So it's not a very simple journey. And again, unlike what was there in SD-WAN or Zero Trust, the bigger program which drove across the organization, here also you need to have some kind of a bigger programs involving the business teams, the IT application teams, the IT infrastructure teams, and your risk teams, and even your audit teams also, showing them like how you want to end up the journey, and how periodically you can have a checkpoint and see what are the best industry practices you can imbibe, right? If you're in a regulated industry like banking and all, you might be compliant to a lot of regulatory requirements, PCI DSS, SOX, and other industry standard requirements, or in healthcare it is HIPAA. So it's also tied up to the regulations and the business where you are in. Right? So it's not a very simple solution, but again, we can take baby steps by looking into the architecture, baby step looking into the controls, and baby step to the to be nature of the convergence, right? Yeah, that's my view. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Ganesh. I think when it's I would say it's kind of simple as well as complex, depending upon what components of SASE you're going to implement it, right?
Yeah.
So to Mr. Vinay, my next question is to you. Like we've heard and we have also discussed, right? We've been discussing from past 30 minutes about its SASE being an amalgamation of several services, right? We're talking about a convergence, and my question would be, can a company choose a particular model and then implement them modularly, right? I mean, there are different components within the SASE. Can I choose what components I want to I would implement it and then take a phase journey, or should I go as a full-fledged implementation of SASE?
Yeah, no, I think it's a brilliant question, Sunil. I think my answer to that question will be that everybody has to take a phased journey for SASE. Right now, SASE, was a term, like you said, was coined by Gartner, and I'm sure you would know that while the term was coined by Gartner, and this was, I think, somewhere around 2019, but 2020 and 2021, if you see, the definition is only broadening. Now, why is it broadening? It's broadening because of the use cases that people are coming across and saying, okay, there is a problem. This is a problem. There are this 10 or 12 services, but this still doesn't solve my problem. Now, how do I solve this problem? Okay, maybe there is one more service that can go ahead and solve this problem, and there is an OEM there who's listening to those customers and rolling out one more service. And is SASE going to stop at the number of services that are available today? I don't think so, right? Because IT is ever evolving. Our challenges are only growing, and as that happens, the solutions are also going to get created for that, which means more services are going to get created for the problem that customer has. Now, while SASE, the term was coined, there were the solutions or the services that were thought to be part of it were around firewalling, around VPN, around threat protection, detection, around DNS, around WAF, around remote browser isolations, SWG, secure web gateway, and so on and so forth. Right? There were so many services that were thought about, and every vendor, right, has a maturity cycle, and every vendor has been rolling out certain services as per the maturity cycle he has, and obviously has been delivering as per the maturity cycles that customer has. But SASE, according to me, is a journey. You cannot get onto a SASE bandwagon from day zero. It cannot be a knee-jerk reaction for SASE. SASE has to be slowly and steadily adopted, because one is you also need to have, you will have your own learning curve, right? And like Ganeshan mentioned, there are processes, there are already established processes within organization to cater to risk, to cater to security, to cater to audits. You have to start making changes to some of those processes when you start adopting SASE, right? And then you have to look at things, from vulnerability assessment and other things, and start looking at how do you make changes to your processes. Start looking at how do you make changes to the skill set of your team who is going to be managing the SASE, because one, the wrong policy, and you have stopped, you probably enabled a service wrongly, your users are going to get impacted because they're not going to then get access to their applications and data, which is very, very critical for them to perform. So it's very important that SASE has to be a phase-wise approach, and and all the SASE services are available modularly. So I'm sure vendors like Lookout, even us, and all the other vendors there, they're offering all these services in a modular fashion. But my take would be that all these customers have to evaluate SASE that ways, look at the services that are bare minimum required as of now, and then start adopting more and more services as is when the requirement goes up. And at the same time, make changes into their internal processes, make changes or enable their people to manage those SASE offerings and SASE services so that they can make the right business policies and right security policies to adopt SASE, and then go on from there. So there's definitely, SASE is not a silver bullet that will solve everything. It has to be a journey, Sunil, and it is journey to be started right now, so that you can get to that level of maturity, so that you can start adopting SASE services in a very quick manner.
Sure. Thanks, Vinay. Thanks for summing that up. Right. I think that sums up the whole conversation we had for the last 40 minutes or so. Thanks. I think there are one or two questions which from the audience, which I would like to read it out and then get your inputs on the same. One question is, can you please highlight what does SASE replace from the current security landscape? Anybody can take this up. Maybe Surajit or Vinay or Ganeshan. Anybody?
So maybe if I can take that, right. So like I said, SASE gives solutions, or SASE gives services like firewalling, VPN, threat protection, cloud app discovery, even in some cases, cost optimization, looking at the traffic that is going onto your cloud and looking at the services that you're using in the cloud, looking at the services where you are subscribed to, and looking at the services that you're using. Looking at that gap, we can actually also recommend cost optimization, DNS protection, WAF. So it all depends upon, it is all as a service, right? So it all depends upon what services that you have enabled and you have subscribed to. and depending on that, you can then start replacing any of the redundant component that you would be using for those services on prem. But again, no customer or no vendor is 100% cloud. They have some bit of workload on prem as well. So you have to then have a good mix of both these solutions. And like I said in my previous answer, it is a journey. So it cannot be a knee-jerk reaction. You have to switch on SASE, start adopting slowly and steadily, and start taking away or start shutting down some of the services that are running into your data centers slowly and steadily. You cannot do it like a knee-jerk reaction.
Sure. Thanks for that, Vinay. I think that was great. I think there is no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Surajit, Mr. Vinay, Mr. Ganeshan, for the insightful journey. I believe even the audiences have been enriched by this discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sunil.
Thanks, Sunil. Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Suresh.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Sunil. Thanks, Surajit.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ganeshan.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.